We learned this week that the trash talking had commenced ahead of next week's apprehensively anticipated first US presidential election debate. We have not as yet learned why this is occurring so early in the campaign, like before either of the contenders have actually even been nominated by their respective parties. And not going to lie, it is tough to rise above the jokes about them trying to get at least the first debate in before the cops come for one participant or the Reaper comes for the other. Hey, all we said was it is tough to rise above those jokes. We merely made them by way of demonstrating that this was what we are rising above. That's not the same as actually making them. Settle down. Anyway, we learned that Donald Trump, at 78, the youthful up-and-coming challenger, was casting doubt upon the mental acuity of the veteran incumbent, 81-year-old Joe Biden.
I think you should take a cognitive test like I did. I took a cognitive test and I aced it. Doc Ronnie Johnson. Does everyone know Ronnie Johnson?
A bold gambit, especially given that we learned when we checked that Donald Trump's doctor's name is, in fact, Ronnie Jackson. Not fewer than 70 million Americans will vote to return the launch codes to him, folks. Sticking with the subject of meetings between unlikely and or unsuitable heads of state, we learned, or at least had it demonstrated to us, that tyranny as a means of government is not notably better at promoting on merit than democracy. We learned that President Vladimir Putin of Russia had decided that 24 years was too long since he had last been to North Korea, or possibly merely reflected that what with one thing and another, he was running short on destinations likely to greet his aircraft with a red carpet rather than an arrest warrant. We learned that the North Koreans do, in fairness, put on a pretty spectacular parade, exultant with the meticulous choreography generally inspired by the threat of deportation to the salt pile which attends any foot out of place. That's what it sounded like. You'll have to imagine Putin and Kim waving through a limousine sunroof. And we learned when Putin pitched up at a gala concert convened in his honour that North Korea remains very much the kind of place where you don't want to be the first guy who stops clapping. Some yards more of that there was. Indeed, they may still be going. But we learned that all this ceremonial flapdoodle had been splendidly well reviewed in the famously rigorously critical Rodong Sinmun, official newspaper of the Workers' Party of Korea, whose view of events will now be read by Monocle's unctuous grovelling desk chief, Fernando Augusto Pacheco.
Passing through the streets of Pyongyang at night, decorated with bright illuminations, the top leaders exchanged the inmost thoughts that had so far been confined to them. And there will too more surely develop the DPRK-Russia relations in conformity with the common desire and intentions of the peoples of the two countries, with their meeting as a momentum.
From which we learned that the language of journalists frantically padding out a word count is indeed universal. And we will once again, Maestro, be requiring the silly French accordion music. For we learned that France is, as ever, gonna France, the latest manifestation of which being the opening of France's first museum dedicated to cheese.
Hooray!
We confess, if we're honest, to being mildly surprised it has taken this long, and are sure that this dereliction has often prompted the sort of outrage we were seeking to caricature when we recorded on a slow afternoon some while back that frankly questionable chorus of Gallic indignation. That's the one. We learned that the imaginatively named Musée du Fromage
What's the point of that?
translates as Museum of Cheese.
I see. Sure, I get it.
is shortly to adorn the Ile Saint-Louis, that island in the middle of the river which flows through Paris, which allows us, and we checked, to quip that surely the people behind this project are crazy. They're literally insane.
Oh no.
Tough crowd. We learned that a planned plethora of cheese-related exhibits, demonstrations and tastings will be available for €20, but that entry will be free for agriculture students and farmers. So that's an afternoon out next time they all drive phalanxes of tractors to the capital in protest against whatever it is they're protesting against that week. However, we, for one whimsical news monologue, would certainly not wish for the Musée du Fromage to become a target for the violence and vandalism which often attends Parisian civil disobedience, as we would not wish upon the proprietors the grim task of cleaning up debris.
Boo!
For Monocle Radio, I'm Andrew Muller.